What's going on, everybody on YouTube? What's going on Facebook? What's going on wherever the hell you're watching this? I do apologize about the noise. I have not yet set up a place where I can do videos and reviews except for my basement, which is my workshop in my new house, and of course the heater is going because it's fucking cold in the Northeast. Today we are going to do a review. We are going to review a part for Evil Dead Chainsaws. Now, as one of the administrators of the Knights of Samaria, I am wonderfully privileged to see a lot of great builders on the page, and sometimes those builders want to make life easier for other builders, and you know, the laundry list of builders who've done that in the past and made pieces available, whether it be grill caps or handles or cuffs, is very, very long and extensive. But somebody recently new got added to the mix, and they are one of our German members of the Knights of Samaria, who goes by the name of Christof Engel. And he decided to make some resin tops. And so I asked to purchase one of those tops so that I could take a look at it, do a review for it. And he sent one over to me. And so that is what we're going to review today, which is your top for your Evil Dead chainsaw. Now, an Evil Dead chainsaw should be made out of a Homelite XL. And if you have a Homelite XL body, they're all pretty standard. So a standard top that's molded and reproduced in mass should fit any Homelite top. If you're not building a Homelite and you get a standardized top, don't complain to the builder if it don't fit, because that's what it's built to do. Right, Finnegan? My dog. So if we take a look at the top itself before we look at sizing and how it sits and whatnot, this is a resin pull. And if you look at the edges and the seams there right across the top, that's gorgeous. So very crisp lines, very, very good edge and piece put together. This was, I believe, steel done with Bondo originally before we molded it. You can see where the two-part mold has a seam. That'll grind out and buff out nice and simple. It's got a hood on the back, which I love, because that means there's not going to be gaps. You can put your cuff right into that. If you want something a little more AOD style, you would just go across and cut this out and leave these gaps open, or you could create the gaps if that's like episode 1 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and that's what you're trying to do. But flat piece, no pre-drilled screws. You can do that on your own and mark those up. So this is flat, which is good. And it's got a little indentation here on each side for how it sits on your Homelite, and it's got these two guys in the back. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of people who build the tops, they don't include the excess so that you can attach it. So it comes with a lot of little extra bits that can help a builder build, but there's no set way to do it correctly. So for example, if I were to go in here and pull out this body, if you look at mine, there is no cutaway back here, so I get my whole hand into it. So it's unclear where the actual bits would come down and attach to if I cut my body away that way. So the good news is that it doesn't limit the use, because if you don't need them, you just cut them off. But if you're one of those people who only cuts back to a certain point and you want these two attached, then you can do that. I am a bit of Bondo milliput, you know, just sort of get it on there and weld it in place, for lack of a better term. So I want mine in there permanently. But it's a really good, we'll just compare. It's a really good top in terms of size. My top's a little tall, so as you can see, this one's a little shorter, so it's much better. If we were to compare it to another one I did, a little bit of a slimmer profile top, you can see this kind of has that same low profile in the top, which is nice. So it's a good size. Now, if I want to measure exactly what this profile is, I'm going to come over here. It is half inch top. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And it's a really, like I said, if you look at the bottom in the casting quality, you can see where his original bracers were, where the the initial handle piece was going to go, or maybe this is now the pour spout. I believe it's both. But gorgeous inside, gorgeous detail. Little air bubbles on this side, which don't matter. Absolutely no bubbles on the top. None whatsoever. Nice and smooth. Will sand up with very little effort whatsoever. What's just really, 1,000 grit wet sanding will do the job, make this nice and shiny. So, I gotta say, as far as a quality top that'll give you the ability to build, looks great. If you take your home light, and you just throw it on top, now remember which side this is. This is the outside, which usually, if it comes off, it doesn't actually attach to this. But, so if you look at it and you rest this on top of it, it doesn't quite rest flat because this is supposed to sit on the inside. So what you need is another side to really see how this is going to sit in your build. Now, the good news is it goes deeper. You see where this cut is, and then this section is all deeper because it's going to have something to attach to. You can do a permanent attachment with little L-tabs, or you can do, milliput or what have you. But if you go ahead and throw this on, and just cover the edge just a bit, and then you drop it in line the way it's supposed to be, right? You pull this up just a little bit so that lines up, and then you drop this down. It looks good. Looks like it's a good profile. And it sticks off about a ½ inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch off the back to cover your cuff. Has a really nice look to it. Has a really good profile. So I like it a lot, and it comes down enough in the front that you should have it sit nice and easy. The one thing that I don't like is that if you do it just right, this piece will actually line up where the hole is that you need to drill to get this piece into the other piece. And screw it together. So you could drill a hole through this and use it as an attachment point, or you could, again, like I said, just cut it right off. What I usually like to do is, for the right side, I typically have the top sit on, and then I make a seam. So this will require some cutting. This isn't just a buy it and slap it on type deal. You have to do some reworking. You have to do some skill work. I believe the ones that Book of the Dead did back in the day from Evil Dead chainsaws, Rob's, I think, were kind of slap and go. They were plug and play for his saws, but he sold the saw body and the top, so it was designed to work together. When you're making an all-purpose one, you can't really do that. So what I like about this is that he's given enough meat to the build that it is creating the most options for the most amount of builders. So if you've already cut your body and it's a slap and go, it may not work. But because there's enough to the piece here, regardless of how you've cut your body already, this will work. And if you haven't cut your body, you could take into account what this is and then see if you want to cut your body a different way. I would love to have Brett from Brett's Groovy Chainsaws back me up with a secondary review that's a little more technical so that he can go into the ins and outs, because I think he would be able to do that. So, do I support Christof Engel's top as a purchasable Evil Dead top? Abso-friggin-lutely. It's great. Would I make changes? Yes. Let's talk a little bit about that. Change number one, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the teeth. I know I'm going to end up cutting them off for the way I build. So I think I would encourage builders not to be afraid to just cut that right off. Number two, as I do resting tops for the most part, the excess may not assist me. So I will have to cut away a lot of that excess, and if you cut too much, you could run into a problem that you'll have to fill with milliput. So it isn't just a flat sitting piece. You're going to have to do some cuts. So that it could be a negative for you if you don't want. Lastly, and this is just a really nitpicky thing, the bubble in the bubble top is a little too much for me. If you look at the profiling, there's a dip, and then it comes up to an excessive bubble, and then goes down the back. I believe that you should cut this and sand this down along this line here, and take this little bit of extra bubble right here out. It's just that little hump is just a little too much of a hump for me. So that's a pretty good shot of it. You can see it right there. You really need to kind of sand this down. This profile in particular just isn't flat enough. So we're going to have to sand this down and sand away some of this excess in the hump. And I think a little bit of that bubble comes from the fact that it's literally directly under where this was. So whatever was propping that up created that little bit of extra bubble, and we're going to take that out. So this will shape up really nice with very minimal work. Because it is resin, I can re-resin it. I could paint resin onto it and fill any gaps or problems or cuts that I didn't like. I can make, I can use Milliput and it'll attach. It's plastic. So this makes it very much easier to work with than metal. And when you are ready to attach it to your chainsaw, then it'll prime up and paint very nice as well. So I think there's a lot of benefits to getting a resin top versus building your own metal one. The benefits of building your own metal one is it's a bit of a rite of passage. You kind of need to build your own one at one point. But if you're building multiple saws for yourself and you want a continuity, you know that resin tops will have that continuity for you and they won't vary. And the other thing that I really like about them is that because they are plastic and they're resin, they're easier to work with. So Christof Engel of Germany makes these tops. I like them very much. I'm very impressed with the quality of the pour. Like I said, there's very little different. The seams, even though there's a little bit of flashing, they're flush. There's not an overlapping of seams so that there's a thicker on one part of the two-part versus the other. So you just have to grind off the flashing, which is super simple to do. And like I said, the only thing that I would change is I would grind down some of this bubble and change that profile a little bit. And I'm probably going to cut away these two spacers in the back because I don't need them. I might keep one on the exhaust side, but not on the grill side. I think that's going to go. But overall, I really like this top. And I think that if you are an Evil Dead fan and you wanted to build your own chainsaw, but that top has always been a bit of a problem for you, or you've always done the cop-out and tried to do a flat top because you were afraid to tackle the bubble top, contact Christof Engel at the Nicest Samaria or on his own page for one of his tops. They are a high quality, they are affordable, and I like them a lot, and I definitely recommend them. Somebody else who makes tops is also, if you're stateside and you don't want to pay the international shipping, you may reach out to Nick Valenza from Nick's Saw Mart. He is also a resin top maker. Some of the Knights recently came across his top, gave it a good review. That is also available on the Knights of Samaria page. And if you are in Europe and you don't want to pay that nasty shipping to get somebody stateside, there is a European making these gorgeous tops now. So contact Christof Engel from Germany and he'll hook you up. Stay groovy.